Welcome to VMblog's 2022 Mega Series. And today I have the pleasure of having Dennis Colar, who is the Director of Strategic Alliances and Channel Partners at Parallels. Welcome.
Thank you.
And today's topic is going to be on virtualization cloud and EUC. Maybe you can start by giving us a quick summary of Parallels RAS and how it was evolved since it was first launched.
Yeah, well, that goes back to Parallels as a company. So when most people think of Parallels, they don't realize that we are fully a virtualization-based software company. We started years ago virtualizing instances of Windows on a Macintosh. So this was our first foray into virtualization with a product called Desktop for Mac. So from that, back in 2014, we acquired a second virtualization company by the name of 2X. And 2X has evolved into the product we know as Parallels Remote Application Server, or RAS for short, as we are discussing today. And the difference of RAS to desktop is that while desktop allows you to virtualize a single instance of Windows, RAS enables you to gain access to or publish your applications or full-blown virtual desktop on a Windows environment. So if you have a Windows-based server infrastructure that people need to remotely access and to gain access to published applications or to published desktops in a very secure and easy-to-use fashion, that's where RAS comes in.
And if you could maybe, talk about what sets Parallels RAS apart from other virtualization and remote access solutions that are currently on the market.
Yeah, so one of the benefits of being a late adopter, if you will, or late entrance into the solution set is the fact that we got to learn vicariously through our competitors. So our competition can be very legacy-based. They've been around for years. The technology is not new, but our approach to the technology was to make it dead simple to use, but also dead simple to design, deploy, support, and train. So if you're administering this solution set, we've re-architected the entire solution set to make it as simple as possible, whether you're managing and supporting it or whether you're consuming it as an end user.
So would you say that the rise in remote and hybrid work has increased the demand for virtualization and cloud computing solutions? And if so, how does Parallels RAS meet this demand?
Yeah, so demand has certainly spiked across many industries, right? With the pandemic and COVID-related changes to our economy. And what that's done is really driven more of a distributed set of workforces. And those workforces need to be able to access information to do their work from any device, anywhere. So we really have seen a huge uptick in adoption, as well as it gave us a very fertile ground for feature set development. And so over the course of the last two releases, over the last 3 years, we've incorporated a lot more functionality in terms of how people work today to support, to provide that within a construct of the management console. So regardless of what challenges maybe an organization might be facing, RAS provides a solution that provides teams an easy access to their desktops or their applications that they need to do the work and productivity that the organization needs. And it does so while providing a high performance, intuitive end user experience, which enables that whole workforce mobility, because we work on a several magnitude of clients from iOS to Android. So if you're mobile, to Windows, to Mac, to Linux. So we have a full suite of clients, and we also have a clientless or an HTML5 based browser-based solution set as well. So again, the other side of this too is we're enabling workforces, in today's environment of hybrid or not going back to the office, to work anywhere, anytime, anyhow.
And security is obviously an important topic these days. How does Parallels RAS enhance data security?
Yeah, so data security is really a key top of mind information. Again, as everybody's been virtualized or moved out to needing access from wherever. And what Parallels does is it provides a multiple set of technologies and features to keep those organizations safe. Well, all company data is housed centrally in a data center, for example, or within our solution. So it's not residing on an individual device, and that the authentication or the connection to that can be very, very secure. So you can be multi-factored. So if you're using MFA or SAML, whatever types of ways you're locking down the system. IT administrators can use granular security policies in RAS to block certain end user actions and provide different access levels for specific users. And we do that all through secure gateways that can be based on a user or device conditions, or even a user location or OS. So we can make it very robust. It's all behind the scenes to the end user. And then the end user most commonly experiences a two-factor authentication, or MFA. So we also increase security by providing that second layer of protection against unauthorized access. And then behind the scenes, the administrators can get as granular as needed to limit who needs to see what, on what conditions, where they may be residing, where they may be coming from, nefarious IP addresses as an example. And again, we provide a cacophony of layered security solutions, depending on how tight the organization needs it to be, or what compliance regulations that they're dealing with. So if you're in HIPAA, for example, if you're in finance and you have certain solutions that need to be locked down, you can do so all within the parameters that we've set and the solution options that you have as securing.
Now, zero trust is a security term that we're hearing a lot about right now. How does it relate to Parallels RAS?
Yeah, so zero trust is a security approach. It really requires that all the users be authenticated, right? So that means basically just what it says, that there is no absolute certainty that you can come in without being authenticated. So RAS enables zero trust network access through a collection of controls that restrict remote access to resources based on certain policies. For example, it could be the user identity, again, the location, the device, the level of security, etc. When access is granted, it's governed by a common security best practice known as principle of least privilege, with advanced permissions filtering added into that. So again, if you live in the security world, you understand these acronyms and this type of posturing, but it limits access to only those resources needed to execute a specific task or action, which they are typically applications and or data. So again, this happens all behind the scenes. What the user experiences is a very simple, eloquent user interface. And then what the administrators experience as well is a simple, easy to use interface with a multitude of options built into it. So we train and we coach our customers and our partners how to set up their environment, and we do a lot of skilling with them to qualify what type of compliance issues they have, how they want to architect the security solution with and through RAS, and validate that it does check all the boxes for their security needs.
If you could, maybe talk about some of the differences between Parallels RAS and a VPN.
Well, again, so VPNs are legacy in our viewpoint as we move into a virtual world, right? VPNs started, they are remote access tools that have been commonly used for point-to-point connectivity to data and or software solutions. They do provide a level of security, They can be problematic and frustrating for users, from an experience level and connectivity standpoint. They're not always the most eloquent in terms of client control and our connectivity. It can vary, right? Their mileage can vary based on how they're connecting and the speed that they may have to connect with and through. VPNs also do not provide the same level of security and stability that we've designed with our virtual desktop or VDI solution set. If a user endpoint device that uses a VPN is lost or stolen, right, that information still resides on the device. With a VDI or virtualized solution set, that's all centrally contained within the server infrastructure and architecture within the data center or premise. So in comparison, RAS, it's all in one VDI solution that doesn't rely on the capabilities of, say, the end user hardware, right? Or a device and an end user hardware, a device in the network and connected to an end user piece of solution. So since we deployed on a centralized server rather than an end user device, employees can use a vast range of hardware and access means. So again, it really frees up the whole BYOD perspective to give the user, and the user oftentimes could be, we're seeing more and more contract labor coming in and needing to work. There's more partnerships that organizations are dealing with that need access to data to collaborate with team members. All of these are different threat vectors that cannot be secured, whereas with RAS, we give you a common platform to lock down the environment, then thereby trust or lock down the data inside your environment, and you decide who gets access to what based on your own granular security definitions.
So you just finished telling us about the differences between Parallels RAS and VPN. But what are the differences between Parallels RAS compared to Microsoft RDS?
Well, RDS is where where it all started years and years ago, and so we are very complementary to RDS. In fact, Parallels RAS sits on top of remote desktop services itself. We utilize the Microsoft remote desktop protocol to gain access to the environment. But what we do is we provide, again, a higher level of feature sets on top of RDS than what RDS provides today. So when you think about your mobile experience, when you think about the different client experiences from Mac to iOS to Android, Chrome to Linux, those are all inherent value adds that RAS brings to the table. When you think about the security posturing that we've already discussed, of how you create your profiles for security and access to which data, again, that's all Parallels RAS. When we talk about how we architect and access, down to the hardware elements of a VDI deployment, again, we're much more eloquently designed, and we leverage the best of breed that Microsoft brings us from an access and secure protocol to also augment it to make it very simple for the end users to consume the data and access the data, and for, more importantly, the administrators to set up an environment that is very complementary and intuitive for everybody to use.
Now, the Parallels RAS technology, sounds great, but how does the licensing work? Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, so we really have two licensing programs. So we do have a very subscription-based solution set for starters. So who would consume a subscription license? Well, if you're an organization, think of it as a public-private. If you're an enterprise company or your state, local government, we have a subscription licensing program. And so you buy the number of subscription licenses that you need on a 1, 2, or 3 year subscription. And those are concurrent. So if you buy 50 licenses, you can use those 50 licenses across 200 users. We keep a tab on how many users are using based on your license limits. So if the 51st person comes in and there's no licensing, they'll get a notification that there is an available license. Please reach out to your administrator to have you added into a new license, or however you want to set up the messaging. But it does let them know that there is a limit and that there is more licensing needed to support it. But again, it's a minimum of 25 users, and it's a 1, 2, or 3 year type of agreement, all based on concurrent usage. Then secondly, if you're a service provider, meaning you're a managed service provider or an independent software vendor, ISV, we have a wholesale licensing program. So think cloud like CSP if you're coming from a Microsoft background and vernacular. So we have a wholesale program that enables partners to embed our solution into a suite of services offerings. So as we know, many of managed service providers, for example, may be selling Office 365. They may be selling an antivirus and their security solutions on top of that. They may also have infrastructure plays that they're doing with hyperconverged, whether it's scale computing or Nutanix, as an example. So you can plug our solution set into the infrastructure and the environment. And for a wholesale cost, month in, month out, it's a monthly recurring charge. Again, there's the beauty with this program is we know that service providers take a while to get that first customer or to do a proof of concept with the customer. So we don't ask for, or do we require, any upfront minimum commitments. So it's a pay-as-you-go model, and it's a utility-based model. So if you use 1,000 licenses 1 month, and then the next month it goes to 500 because it's vacation time, kids are out, well, people are out, you pay for 500 users that month. And then when it scales up, or God forbid we have a natural disaster or a snow day, and utilization jumps from 1,000 to 2,000 because more people are working remotely, you then pay for 2,000 licenses. So again, we make it as simple as possible for the partners to scale at their customers' needs with a wholesale price point. And what we ask in return for that is that they take on the tier 1 and tier 2 questions from the customers when they are having challenges. And then we back the partner up 7x24 with with technical support and DevOps support. So we have 2 programs that cover the entire market. One that's really directed towards our wholesale partners, whether they're managed service providers or ISVs. And then we have one that we work through with our traditional value-added reselling channels to reach our enterprise and government and education customers.
Well, thanks for that overview of Parallels RAS. Would it be possible for us to take a look at the product, maybe get a demo?
Absolutely. So with us today, I have Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen is our sales engineering leader for North America, and he is here to do a demo. So why don't we transition to Jonathan and let him take it away?
Great. So what are we going to take a look at?
So today we'll take a look at the end user experience and what that's going to look like for your users. And then we'll jump into the admin console a little bit, kind of poke around there and how things are actually configured. All right, so when we're looking at the end user experience, there's a couple of different ways that we can actually access the software. So one is going to be our full client, which is available in this case for, this is a Windows PC, but we have it as well for Mac OS. We also have it for iOS, Android, Linux, and Chromebook. So pretty much anything you might want in your environment, we have a full client for it. And then kind of behind this full client, we've got our HTML5 client as well. So the HTML5 gateway kind of gives you that quick access that you can kind of launch the page and get into whatever you're looking to work with without having to install anything on your machine. And we can go ahead and open our mission critical apps here. And we'll take a look at WordPad first. And from the gateway, I also have the ability to launch in either of the clients as well. But this is opening it right in the browser here. Obviously, the downsides to using HTML5 is being a browser technology. I am stuck in the browser here. So if I were to minimize this, I'll lose it. Very difficult to do multiple screens as well. You can kind of play with that with multiple windows, but it gets a little sticky sometimes. So we definitely recommend full client for stuff like that. Some of the other limitations here, if I come to File Save As, and I come to this PC, I'm actually only seeing server-side things here. So when I'm using that HTML5 client, I don't have direct access to my local drives. If I cancel that here, but we do end up getting is I get this little chevron icon here. If I click on that, it gives me the ability to upload and download to and from the server, as well as use my clipboard. So I still have that functionality in HTML5, just a little bit more of a roundabout way of actually accessing that. Similarly, if I come to print here, I have this 2x universal printer for Jonathan by Parallels. So that is going to allow me to print to whatever is specified as the default printer on my local machine, but that's all I have access to in HTML5. Now, if I close WordPad here and open it up in the full client, we'll get a little bit different experience. That's just giving me a notification that it's exiting that session and opening it through the client. I can pull this over here. So obviously I'm no longer bound to the browser here. This is opening up as if it were installed on my local machine. If I come to File Save As again and come to this PC, I'm seeing all those server-side drives, but now I'm also seeing the drives on my local PC. So from within the application, I now have access to all of my local drives as well. Whether I need to save something down to my local machine, open something from my local machine, I can do that very easily from within the full client. Similarly, again, if I come to print here now, I have quite a few of these for Jonathan by Parallels printers available. So these are all of my printers here in my local office, and I can select between them. So if I were to say have kind of a regular laser printer, and then I have a label printer, and I have a couple that I need to bounce between in my regular duties, I have that ability in the full client. Whereas again, in HTML5, I've kind of bound to whatever is specified as my default printer. So we do have some customers that try and get around that. They want to use the HTML5, so they'll set a default printer, open their session, do what they need to do. And if they needed another printer, they'll go ahead and close the browser or just log back into the browser after resetting a different default printer on their local machine. So it's doable, just not quite elegant. All right. So looking at the back end, this is actually the admin console. So when we're talking about getting things up and running, we're looking at about 30 to 45 minutes to actually run the initial install on a server, provided that that is provisioned already and it's already connected to the domain. And then from there, we're really just doing a couple of things. So if I come to the start menu here, we'll add the initial already session host, we'll push out some applications, and then we're good to go. And those things add maybe another 10 minutes. So we're looking at about an hour to be fully up and running with a very basic, at least, use case, and then we can scale out from there. So this is all of the things that I have in my site, and we can look at those individual components. So RD session hosts here, I have two. If we needed to add another one, all of these component screens are going to have this plus button here in the top right corner. If I click on that, all it's going to ask for is the IP address, or we can pull that up from Active Directory as well if we've got a fully qualified domain. And then it's just next, next, next until we're done. RAS is going to handle all of that configuration. It'll even take a vanilla Windows server here in the RDS section, and it'll actually install the roles that it needs for RDS, do all of that configuration in the back end for you. So very quick and easy to get up and running. Connection brokers as well. We can have a primary and a secondary. And then we can add a third one here if I had another machine in my environment, and we can set that to standby. So these two will handle about 20,000 users. If we need to expand beyond that, or we want more redundancy, we can have that third one. Again, we can put it in standby mode, and then we can use this auto promotion here. So if something were to happen to one of those, we can automatically promote that to take its place. The default is going to be 30 minutes, but we can set that down lower if we wanted to. And then we've got our secure client gateways as well. So the secure gateways is actually going to be handling the bulk of it. And kind of the difference between the two is traffic is entering through the gateway, and the gateway is actually making the connection to whatever our endpoint is, whether that's RDS, whether that's VDI. The connection broker is handling all of the logic. So who is this user that's coming in? What are they trying to access? What permissions do they have? What policies do we have in place? And then it's also handling all of the back-end load balancing as well. So we can configure that load balancing here. It's going to default to resource-based, which is what most folks leave it on. But you do have the ability to set it to a round robin if you wanted to. And then we can also select what we want to take into account when we're doing resource-based. So maybe that's the number of user sessions. Maybe it's a combination of all three. That's kind of up to you guys. All right, looking at publishing and kind of looking at some of this stuff that Dennis was talking about there with being able to drill down into who can access what and when. If we come into any of these applications or folders, you can do it at both levels. And we come to filtering here, we can actually create these rules. So I don't have any here in this environment, so it's going to allow anything. But if I go ahead and create another one here, we can get into the ifs, ands about it, right? And we can limit that by the IP address range. So are they on site or on the VPN, or however they're connecting to that environment, whether they're physically on or whether they're somewhere else, right? So if they're at the coffee shop down the street, we don't want them accessing sensitive applications. So you can kind of create that bit there and not only specify who can access, but when and how. All right, kind of the last couple of pieces that we'll talk about here. Under the connection menu here, again, it is going to default using Active Directory. We do recommend that it be connected to the domain before we install RAS. Provided that it is already on the domain, it's actually automatically going to pull all of that information. And it's going to default to all trusted domains. So if you have multiples in a forest and you want to specify a specific domain, you do have that ability as well. This is also where we'll set up MFA configuration as well. If we have an MFA provider, we support pretty much everything radius-based out of the box. We've also got Google Authenticator as well as regular OTP. So you have a lot of options there. We can work with Microsoft Authenticator, seems to be our most popular recently, but you do have a lot of options there. And we have SAML as well. So we can connect to those outside identity providers, whether that's Microsoft 365, whether that's Okta or any of the other big names are all supported there as well. And then the last thing that we'll kind of drill down into here is going to be the policies. And this kind of takes it a little bit of a step further on how people can access and when. So we can not only change when they can access and who can access what, but how they can access it. So if we're doing, say, Teams meetings or Zoom or something like that, we can make sure that the video capture devices are redirected and that they can use audio redirection as well. We can configure USB redirection in here as well. And we can turn these things off as well. So whether or not they have access to their local drives is configurable in here. Whether they can use multiple monitors or not is in here. So pretty much anything you might want to impact as far as that user session goes and what they're allowed to do. There is a line item in here for it. Always recommend when potential customers are doing a POC that they kind of come in here and mess with these settings and kind of play with them and see what they do. The one that I like the most, and I always like to talk about, is the session pre-launch here. So if I select session pre-launch and I set it to machine learning, what it's going to do is it's going to start to learn my users' behaviors. What time do they typically log in every day? And what do they open first? And it's going to start to do those things ahead of time. So if I'm logging in at 8 o'clock every day and I'm opening up Outlook, it's going to open my session. It's going to open Outlook. So that first hit of the day, that session is already built and it makes that a little snappier. The more important thing that it's going to do too is keep an eye on login storms. So if I have everybody in my organization logging in at 9 o'clock every day, we're hitting that AD server pretty hard, trying to do all those authentication requests. We'll actually space those out and make your resources stretch a little further. All right, and that's all I've got to show for today.
Great. Well, that's great. Thanks to Jonathan for a great demo. Dennis, as we wrap things up, all the great information you provided, the demo, where can folks go if they want to learn more about Parallels RAS, and all the things that we talked about today?
Yeah, so again, it's pretty simple. It's parallels.com, leads you to us. And I'll say this too. So as parting comments, as you look at what Jonathan just presented, right, and you look at our evolution from individual PC, right, running Windows on a Mac, to a client server-based Windows server solution set with RAS for published applications and virtual desktops. In June of this year, we acquired a company by the name of Awingu. And Awingu takes that evolution in our virtualization journey to the next level in creating virtualized workspaces through a cloud deployment. So we continue to invest and double down in virtualization. So Awingu gives you all that flexibility to access your desktops, to access your files in a secure remote fashion on any time, any place, on any device through a browser. So we continue to invest in this solution set. Secondly, when you look at RAS, I know that's what we're here to talk about today, and you are a service provider. I think you're going to appreciate the simplicity and the eloquence that we have. Give us an hour is what we ask. You can, as Jonathan mentioned, we do have a wizard-based installation. You can be up and running in as simple as 20 to 30 minutes. Give us an hour. If you're in the position of looking at and evaluating your infrastructure solutions for remote access and virtualization solution sets, pound per pound, we have to punch above our weight, and we do day in and day out, very simply and very cost effectively. We also enable you as a service provider or as a customer to white label the solution. So you don't have to be Parallels. If you're a help desk within an enterprise and you want to advertise this as your own, or if you're a service provider and you want to put your own logo on it as well, we enable you to do that. So the brand look and feel doesn't have to be Parallels. We love the advertisement, but we also know that many shops brand this into their own workflows and their own work solutions, and they want that flexibility. So again, if you're at all interested, parallels.com. The web page is split between customers, enterprise customers, or value-added resellers, more importantly. So think subscription to our licensing model. And if you're a service provider, we have a partner inside there as well that'll help us explain to you the difference of the programs, the value to you and to your customers.
Great. Well, we appreciate your time and taking part in the VMblog Mega Series.
Really appreciate having the opportunity to get in front of your audience, and really appreciate your support and time today. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Alrighty.